I'm going to create a new method, but I'm not putting anything inside of this main method right now. I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it public static connection. I'm going to call this connect, and that there, and throws an exception. So public means it's available to anybody who wants to use it. It's not a private function. Private functions are only available inside the class that is in. Public means anyone else. So if I create multiple classes, okay, by making it public, I can get access to that method inside of that class. Static, we already talked about. Connection. So connection is an object type that belongs to the java.sql package. Okay, so let's see. We can see it right here actually. So it tells you, well, it's an interface, but what it tells you what it does is a connection with a specific database. Okay, that's what it is. So I'm saying to my program, I want to create a method. This is the name that I've given it. I've given it the name connect. This is the type of method that I want it to be. The type of it is going to be a connection interface. I had to throw an exception because we're going to put inside this thing what we call try-catch statements. And typically, if you're going to have a try-catch statement, you're going to have to throw an exception. And sometimes, like I said, you're depending on what IDE or what you're using at the moment, they can kind of like put that in for you and help you figure that out. But typically, if you're going to be throwing exceptions, you should make sure that anything that has that try-catch statement or is going to call that try-catch statement should also throw an exception. So that's why I put a throws exception here and a throws exception here. Might not make sense right now. Kind of will when we get there. Now, as you can see, this whole thing is red because something's wrong. And it's telling you something is wrong, and it has to do with this thing right here. And it says that we're missing a return statement. Now, since this is the type of function that I'm creating, the type of function that I'm creating is a connection function, I should return a connection. But for now, in order to satisfy this, I'm just going to return null. It serves primary purposes. Right now, it just gets rid of all of these errors, so it's not driving anybody crazy. But it's also there just in case something goes wrong, right? So if we can't connect to our database, we need to return something, because this is what we're saying. We're saying we're returning something. But if we can't return a connection because we didn't connect, we're going to have to return this null object so that the computer doesn't just completely fall apart. Okay? So that's what we're doing here. So Alexa came back, put in some new code. We're going to create a string, and the name of this string is going to be called connection URL. That's the variable name we're going to be using, right? It's a connection URL, and the type of connection it is a string type, okay? But we got to get the information. So before we kind of close this out, we have to go get this information from somewhere. So, sorry. If you go into your portal.azure.com and log back in, go to your database. Everything's good. You're going to go down to connection strings. As you can see, they have different types of connections. So you have the JDBC, which is Java database connection. I forgot what the O is called. But I think it's Open Database Connection. So this is something you might have to use. if you're using another SQL type, or you're using not SQL but another programming language, you might be making use of this ODBC here. But if you're using PHP or Go, they have very specific things as well for you to connect. What was the other thing I wanted to show? Oh, yes. As you can see, I went back to overview. And as you can see, Visual Studio has its own little connection wizard that you can utilize. So if you're using Visual Studio as your IDE, right, Microsoft is trying to make it very easy for you to connect. I'm not going to say that it's going to be easy, but theoretically it should be easy. But anyway, back to our database. Back down to our connection strings. We are using JDBC. And so that's what I'm going to take. And I'm going to take this whole thing. You don't need this whole thing. I think you only need the server name, the database name, your user admin name, and whatever your password is. That is the bare minimum you need in order to make a connection to your database. But Microsoft gives you some extra stuff, so it adds encryption. You don't need a certificate, and it also adds a timeout to your session. So it'll automatically time out after, it looks like, about 30 seconds. So all I'm going to do is this is my example code. I'm going to paste that here, and I'm just going to change this. It says your password, so remember our password was 2020. I mean, that's how I feel right now. I'm sorry. And I'm going to change the password. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to my IntelliJ, right? I have everything set up to go. The only thing I didn't put was the double quotation marks. Put that there. Move my cursor inside, Control V. And that is my connection URL that I'm going to use to connect to my database.